Morning, folks. Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another direct-to-YouTube special. This one brought to you by Felchmaster, who wanted to see the who wanted to see the Ominous Seas deck in action again. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, we tried like a Shardless Agent, Ancestral Vision, Ominous Seas deck, that also had, I believe the pronunciation is Joyrel, the one in a green card that makes cats when you draw, I think, two or more cards in a turn. And they wanted to see that deck back in action again. But last time around, we found we had a little bit too much clunk, and we felt like we were working a little bit too hard in order to try to draw the cards off of Ominous Seas. Last time around, the build had some things like cycling lands in it to like really try to make more cats and trigger that ability consistently. And we found that we were running into some problems with things like wastelands, and that we just had a little bit too much clunk. So we're trying this deck again. So in case you're not familiar with Ominous Seas, the idea here is that when you draw a card, you put a foreshadow counter on it, and you can remove 8 counters from it to create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token. So last time around, we did have like the Ominous Seas and the Shardless Agents, and Sylvan Library is obviously great with it. But this time around, we're going to be adding a couple more blue cards that just draw cards more efficiently. So we've added Icefang Coatl to the deck, and we've also added Uro. Icefang Coatl didn't really work last time around because we were playing the Horizon Canopy lands, and I think Uro is a great addition to this deck. Sort of like how Oko was the glue that could hold together some of these like fringe strategies and brews in the pre-banning world. I think Uro can do the same thing in this post-banning world. And I think this is going to give us something powerful and singular that can win the game on its own, while also really working well with Ominous Seas. Um, I'm I'm very hopeful that this deck can do well. Individually, the cards in this deck are of very high quality, and that's not always the case for the brews. Now, Ominous Seas is a really hit or miss card. Like either like you have made 2/8/8 Krakens in one turn cycle sometimes, or like you've drawn it in the early game and like the rest of your hand doesn't really draw cards very well, and it sits there and does nothing for a while. But there's a very high ceiling on the floor. Unfortunately, also a pretty low floor. The sideboard of this deck is strong and varied. It's got my favorite sideboard card in the format, Carpet of Flowers, so you know I love it. And otherwise, there's just kind of an annoying assortment of cards. I'm not sure how Relic of Progenitus is going to be in this deck. So, like, we have Tarmogoyfs and we have Uros that care about our own graveyard, but this is graveyard hate that cycles. And I have really felt like Relic of Progenitus is a great sideboard card in the format previously, because chipping down your opponent's graveyard is just so effective at stopping the Uros from coming back. So rather than treating Relic as like a nuke the graveyard sort of thing, in most of the matchups recently, I just find that that Relic sits on the battlefield if you play it out on turn 1, keeps the graveyard in check, and then when you start running low on resources later, you cycle it. I think Engineered Explosives is an interesting take on a sideboard card that can help you with some of the 2-for-1-esque situations that this deck maybe can struggle with. There's some card advantage in Ice Fang Coatl, Shardless Agent, and Uro, but there's not necessarily going to be the easiest sources of card advantage that don't require setup, if that makes sense. So like Ancestral Vision is like the source of card advantage for this deck. Like this is the big way that this deck can pull ahead quickly, but that's often going to require a brainstorm to set up with Shardless Agent or something of that general nature. Overall, I'm excited to give this one a try, and if you want to try this one out later, remember the deck list and donation information is always available in the videos. Let's battle, and throw me a like if this deck impresses you or you like what's going on here. I'm going to be keeping this opening hand here. We get to play out an Ominous Seas on turn 2, then we have Brainstorm and Uro to draw cards with it, and if I need to Force of Will something, I have a couple of pretty reasonable pitches. Um, let's maybe stop that now. Opponent has mulled pretty deep. I don't want to turn on their blasts, especially like because Ominous Seas and most of my win conditions are already going to be kind of rough against that deck. Yeah, let's not mess with that, and let's not try to put a whole bunch of counters on Ominous Seas right away here. I'm going to guess that my opponent is ultimately going to be favored against me here. So Flooded Strand is going to get Island. Misty Rainforest is going to get Forest. And then I will have 3 basics so that I won't be overly concerned with a Blood Moon effect. Right, well, good thing we forced. That one can just sit and play. Basic check. 2, 2. Hmm. 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 Well, the good news is there's 1 snow-covered plains. Bad news is I missed adjusting the second one for some reason when I switched the mana base from regular basics to snow-covered basics. That one's on me. That one's not on the donor. That one's on me. All right. Moving on. We'll see how many times that comes up this league. It only matters when I naturally draw the planes, the regular planes. Oh, do I just want to fetch now? Then the graveyard play Uro. Or fuel the graveyard play Uro? Probably. There's a possibility I should just brainstorm this turn and then play Sylvan Library, though. Like, finding counter magic is pretty good here. Yeah, let's not worry about turboing out the Uro. The presence of the red elemental blast type cards means that it's not the most reliable kill condition. Let's put back maybe Trop and the Ice Fang. Armagoyf has a big butt. It's possible I'm supposed to ponder here. I really am not going to need double colors, so as long as I pick up something that's blue here, it's probably fine. I guess let's get blue, green. So in keeping the planes, I kept all of my colors, but I did make it so that it's harder for me to escape my Uro. That may have been a mistake on my end. Alright, didn't get punished for tapping out. There is not a sorcery in graveyard yet, so I can pick up 1 point of damage by playing this Ponder first. I love this stuff. That's actually a really heads-up play. Guess I should have drawn the Swords to Plowshares first. Yeah, now I don't have interaction up in the next turn cycle. Yeah, I should have drawn the Swords to Plowshares first to play around that. That was on board. That's on me. I'll look real dumb if my opponent just top decks Painter and then I die with his Force of Will in my hand. Yeah, that's fine. And now, notably, my opponent does have a 3/3 blocker available to them. But I have a Force of Will available to me. I'm gonna go ahead and keep battling here. Pick up a Trop and pick up a Tundra. Now, we want to get rid of this Uro. Do I want to play Sylvan Library this turn? Blue, green, green, blue. I can leave myself the option too. So I can get rid of this, 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 this without changing the size of the Tarmogoyf. Is there any sort of soft permission spell out of Painter that I need to play around that would make playing Sylvan Library bad? I don't think so. I'll go ahead and play out Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library plus Uro is a combo of sorts. Now my opponent needs Painter plus a Red Elemental Blast in the same turn cycle in order to beat me. They can produce a second blocker. They can survive another turn, but I have 2 lethal threats currently. Yeah, so this is them going all in and looking for a way to try and combo off this turn. I will Force of Will it. Yeah, that can resolve. No need to counter something here unless it kills me. And then even if they have the Red Elemental Blast here, they can't actually live. Because it's mandatory to block both of these creatures or my opponent dies. And hence they have to chump block with the Painter, they can't activate the Grindstone, and I'm good to go. Just gonna get through these cards. Let's see if I can find a removal spell to actually literally kill my opponent this turn. That looks kind of islandy to me. Yeah, Teferi will work. Yep. There we go. I think we got a little lucky that my opponent flooded out in the mid game, if I'm being perfectly honest. Pithing Needle's good, EE is good, and Wilt is good. Relic of Progenitus does some stuff against the Goblin Welder side of the deck, so I can be thinking about this as well. Because that recursion is kind of a pain in the ass. The issue, I think, is that all my cards are good. And so I think it's going to be pretty easy to run into oversideboarding here. I think this is a matchup where I board out the Ominous Seas because, like, the Red Elemental Blasts and Pyroblasts are so good. Yeah, if I start with that, where do I go from there? Second Sylvan Library is probably not necessary. I can probably trim on this. Like, the card advantage is nice, but again, the fewer big targets I can have that just get got by Red Elemental Blast, the better. This configuration works if I don't play the relics. But I feel like I want them. And I'm not sure what the worst things are. Maybe something like this? Let's try this. So quick note, I remembered that I'm playing a 61 card main deck, so I brought the Force of Negation back in. I have a little bit of an unexciting opening hand, but I think that's fine. Blue, green, white. I lead on this one and pass the turn. I think, as of right now, Regardless Agent gets pitched to Force of Will. Yeah, that's fine. Well, now Arrow would. Alright, so this gets blue, this gets green, and then I've successfully played around a Blood Moon effect if that's something that my opponent is packing. I think I'm going to go ahead and preemptively play this out. The Smuggler's Copter is a valuable enough card that, like, I'm very happy to trade 1-for-1 with it, even if it's an expensive 1-for-1 trade. Because it makes it so that the how do I say this? This makes it so that cards that otherwise aren't doing anything do something, and that scares me. And this sort of situation is why I brought the relics in. I am going to get a 2-for-1 off of engineered explosives. Graveyard confirmed spooky. And I think I just take my 2-for-1 here. Don't want to let that stuff untap. Now, all right. All right. Is it Uro time? Is it Shardless Agent time? I think it's Shardless Agent time. There's so many good Shardless Agent hits here. It's not really one of them. So basically, I was hoping for something that, like, wasn't Icefang Coatl, as bad as that is to say. Because cantrips to dig for removal are fine. Wilt's good. The removal spells are good. The Tarmogoyfs to put on pressure are fine. Run it back. I think I'll run it back, and if I miss, I'll just play out a giant Tarmogoyf. I don't think I'm attacking for 1, because I don't want my opponent to be attacking and filtering with Smuggler's Copter. Blue, blue, green. This gets a Trop. Apologies for the non-matching Tarmogoyfs. I own 1. Yeah, there's a Lightning Bolt targeting the Icefang Coatl. Opponent values getting in quite highly, which makes sense. My opponent taps Painter Servant to get in with Smuggler's Copter, though. I do have my opponent on a theoretical 2-turn clock. That's the good news. The bad news is that 3 Grindstones might kill me instantly. And the 7-ish remaining Goblin Welder effects are also quite good. See what my opponent has to pick up here. Probably just a Welder. Yeah. Oh, wow. Not sending in the Looter Scooter. Start with this pre-combat. Pretty sure I'm just getting rid of the painter. And I think I'm fine with it doing it pre-combat. My opponent will then use that to crew, and I can lose one shardless agent in this attack, but I think that's fine. I could, like, is losing one shardless agent worth 2 damage? Probably, but maybe not. And they're not doing anything. Oh, right. This is also on D. I forgot about that. Now I can just pass the turn here and ambush that smuggler's copter if my opponent attacks with it. I'm not sure that they can. Alright, I assume that's going to be my opponent getting something like an ensnaring bridge. Could also just get a combo piece and try to, get me. Ormod's Crypt also has some value. Oh, my opponent has Artifact Creature instant land over there. The Tarmogoyfs wouldn't actually change size. They just stop me from getting an Uro. As of right now, I have 7 guaranteed damage on my opponent on my turn. It is not quite lethal. Alright, now I don't love my position. I think I need a piece of interaction here. I get a couple of bonus draws to find it, though. Alright. How do I play this turn? I can just play Uro and have Force of Will back up afterwards, send everything at Karn. The Karn doesn't like do something like get a bridge and mess me up that way. Notably, my Relic of Progenitus is currently off due to Karn. So I have blue, blue, green, green. I can play this Ponder first and try to find something disruptive. Find a Swords of Plowshares and put my opponent to 10. I don't kill them this turn. I can kill Arn if I send everything at it. Well, I guess I don't need to let my opponent know that I'm doing that. I guess there's the world where I draw exactly Swords to Plowshares with Uro that makes me want to play Uro first. Green, blue, green. Opponent has artifacts and creatures. This can go. My opponent has lands. So these can go. All right. So now I can go ahead and ponder and look for a Swords to Plowshares. Good. He's not bad. I think I kind of need to high roll, though. All right. Now Goblin Welder is online, and that's scary, because that's something that my counter spells don't interact super, super well with. I need to counter that, otherwise I lose the game on the spot. The opponent activates Grindstone and then welds in Painter. Oh, shit. So now my opponent has exactly 3 to activate this and then put in Painter. And that's a pretty easy line, so I don't think they're going to miss it. Yep. All right. Interestingly enough, there might have been a line where I killed my opponent by shutting off their Ancient Tombs if I just attacked them directly. That wasn't something that I was thinking about in my previous turn cycle. I feel like the sideboarding is okay. Some of the stuff like Ancestral gets a little bit better on the play, but I think I'm more or less good with how things currently stand. Okay, I've kept a hand that is a little bit unexciting, but it has a Force of Will. It has multiple blue things that draw cards. This will hopefully work itself out. And I think the Ice Fang Coatl is the least valuable thing here. I'm just going to keep the Painter's Servant out of play. Might be looking to brainstorm to really fix this hand. Do I do it now? Hey. There's 2 cards that really make me want to do it now. A Relic of Progenitus early is great, and a Ponder is also fine. Yeah, that's fine. Put those two things back. Grab a Trop here. Don't think I need to super immediately work towards the 3 snow permanents. Teferi's great. I'll take Teferi and Brainstorm out of this. Yeah, Teferi undoing whatever my opponent does this turn sounds great. Also, it's so nice to just have a mute button right on the microphone that I can just use in situations like that one. Ooh, my opponent doesn't have more land. That very actively makes the Teferi better. How do I want to play this turn in terms of fetching? You still maybe need to respect Blood Moon type effects. I haven't seen one in 2 games. Don't want basic planes. I get basic... No, I can't get basic forest here. And I can't cast the fairy. Alright, yeah, let's Tundra. So this Teferi is worth more than might immediately be obvious here. Because this stops my opponent from using the Red Elemental Blasts and Pyroblasts as counter spells. They can still use it to destroy permanents, but they can't use it to just immediately, fight back when I'm fighting. Yeah, so notice how opponent immediately takes that out. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'll Brainstorm, see if I can answer Painter's Servant. If I can't, I'll play Uro. Oh, it looks like I can. Throw back an Uro. And a Trop. Let's just take that out now. I think I stacked it so my Uro is on top, so like I can theoretically Force of Will. I would prefer not to Force of Will. But I may just have to. Yep. That's fine. It takes away one of my tools, and it does make finding a Relic of Progenitus more juicy. Because if my opponent can set up like recursive graveyard-based stuff, I have a little bit more trouble dealing with that now that I can't break it up via just pinpoint spot removal. Well, think I just need to play the Uro. It may mean that I'm shields down for this next turn cycle, but I just have nothing going on. I'll hold the Ice Fang to pitch to Force of Will to take out Painter's Servant. I just really don't want that card in play. Yeah. I thought that scenario was kind of likely, since my opponent just used a red Elemental Blast on the Teferi so quickly earlier. Opponent didn't attack there, which means they're not overly concerned about my life total currently, which is scary for me. Probably pick up Snow-Covered Forest here. And then I'm going to get my third one. I'm going to get a Snow-Covered Island here. I want to marginally thin the deck because I am scared. I get like 2-ish draws here to answer this Painter, I think. Blue, blue, green. Green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope I don't just have to floop a bunch of power into play and pass the turn. Like, Wilt would be great. I think I need to play both of these and just say, like, if you have the Grindstone and the mana to activate it, I'm going to lose here. Because, like, 1 Uro in play. Yep. Yeah, it, like, just being chumped by Imperial Recruiter is not great for me. So, generally speaking, I find that Painter is pretty good against slower blue decks, and I am definitely a slower blue deck. We'll go out the noble way and just draw to an empty library. I feel like our opponent earned it there. GG's opponent, well played. All right, round 2. I realized my mistake, and I forgot to change this to a snow-covered plains. So it puts me at a slight disadvantage here for Ice Fang Coatl reasons. This hand's fine. It is not necessarily an exciting hand. Like, I need green mana. I don't like that my only blue source is Wastelandable. I have Force of Will for a fast combo deck. Arid Mesa has me thinking burn. But I need green, so I don't think I can fetch a basic island here. Goyf good. Goyf's good. I think I'll take Goyf and Teferi of these things. I'm not going to be able to set up Ancestral off the top with Shardless because I don't have access to green mana. Alright, maybe blue-red Delver? I don't think that plays Arid Mesa. Be a Stoneblade deck. Be a Miracles deck. I am on the non-basic plan pretty heavily this game, which I think is not going to be the norm. Kind of like my position. I feel like I have a good assortment of stuff for whatever my opponent is doing. Yep, feels like this is going to be the Miracles deck that plays Bobble. Ooh. I'll just Swords to Plowshares that. I want that to resolve because there's a very good chance that it makes my Tarmogoyf bigger. Ooh, buddy. So my opponent has shown me Spell Pierce. I think I play around Spell Pierce by making my land drop and then Swords to Plowsharing that thing. By making my land drop and then Swords to Plowsharing that thing. Do what you just talked about, Phil. Yeah, it's fine. Cards are so good. What do I even pitch? Probably one of the 3-drops. Keep the Brainstorm as the oh shit button. I wonder if my opponent's deck is maybe a little closer to like Bomberman? Wrong. Is playing the Uro and just trying to hit another land drop better? Nah. I want this effect in play. Ah, the card's so good. I think as long as I have the fairy in play before I try to flashback the Uro later, it's fine. Nice. So I can go for the Uro next turn. I don't know if it will be correct to. Seems like my opponent's deck probably has Swords to Plowshares in it, so using Teferi for some degree of protection first is totally reasonable. Blue, white, something. This fetches green. Let's do this. Oh, wow. Oh, that was unexpected. All right, this leaves me a little unsure of how to sideboard. I like Carpet and Veil for sure. I think I like Relic. Relic's kind of close. My opponent having a one-sided draw engine I don't like. But like the blowback on my Tarmogoyfs and Uros are definitely real. I feel like I'm set up pretty well to fight against opposing blue decks. Let's maybe not over sideboard. Maybe let's go down one of these. Go down one of these. Uh, Go down two of these, and then one more Force of Will? The Force of Will is so good against Emery. I'm not sure here. Like, the Ominous Seas is so good come the mid to end game. Like, maybe not quite on par with Uro, but close in terms of the amount of value it is going to give. Like, once I have a Sylvan Library and an Ominous Seas, like, just spitting out a Kraken every other turn is insane. Maybe I'll just trim one Ice Fang Coatl since I'm not sure. Um, like, I know I want that Carpet. All right, Ominous Seas plus Sylvan Library. Sneap. Yeah, I wish I got a slightly better feel for where on like the combo control tempo axis my opponent is at in game one. Like my opponent could do something like fetch Stoneforge Mystic here, and that would be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'm not sure which one of my cards I play on my turn because I think they're all good. I have no white cards currently. The white cards that I could draw are pretty important. A little worried about this just eating a Spell Pierce here. I really need this specifically to help me make land drops. And so I'm playing it into the Spell Pierce this turn anyway. All right, solid. My opponent just fetched there. I am not exactly sure why. Especially if they did not have a land drop. I don't think you want to take a land out of your deck in that case. I'm going to redraw and try to hit a land here. Oop. Okay, so we're gonna have maybe a pseudo control mirror where neither one of us is making land drops. All right, my opponent has 3 mana. They're favored now. That's how this game is going to work. Now I'm favored because I have more cards. I get a basic here. I don't think I care about this Death Touch very much right now. I think I'd rather have a Trop. I think I'd rather have a Trop. I'm going to play the card that walks into a counter spell the least here. The only thing that's bad to hit is Swords to Plowshares. Unless my opponent has like a Hull Breacher. Excuse me? Alright, no more Ponders, I guess. I don't think I care. I'm just surprised. I guess that's kind of interesting if you're playing this like Emery recursion deck. You counter your opponent's like Swords to Plowshares, and then they're dealt with forever. Yeah. Now I'm slightly punished for not touching basics for Ice Fang Coatl to have Death Touch, but I don't think my opponent would attack anyway. Hitting Swords to Plowshares is fine. If I don't hit Swords to Plowshares, I just play Teferi and bounce the Mentor. Yeah, Test of Talents makes a lot of sense if Mentor and Emery are both in this deck because they both just provide card advantage over time if they sit in play. Guess technically I maybe should have attacked with Shardless Agent first in case my opponent has a force effect. But maybe I'm the defensive one right now since I'm going to be playing a Planeswalker anyway. It's a land drop, and why would I need it? I have so much stuff. I have just so very much stuff. I currently have nothing that answers a Monastery Mentor permanently, and I can't deploy my stuff. I feel like my opponent is currently favored this game. I can think about EE in post sideboard games for monk tokens. I get one redraw next turn into an answer to Monastery Mentor. I think I'm okay if I can answer it. Yeah. This Fangcoatl doesn't have Death Touch. I think I need to keep the Teferi alive. It's just valuable. Like, it lets me try to answer the Monastery Mentor without taking Force of Will or Force of Negation into the equation at all. Alright, I have one card I'm very specifically looking for. Let's find it. Nope. Well... yeah, no. Shit! Okay. All around bad times for me. Mentor will go wide of Tarmogoyf quite quickly. Sorry about that. Got a hair in my throat for a second there. I find it very unlikely that I win this game. Like, my opponent just needs to be out of gas. Ooh. Thank you, Teferi. Wow. I would like to retract my previous statement. I think we're fine. Like, I think my opponent is sitting on a couple of counter spells, and I'm just going to play 2 Tarmogoyfs and obliterate them. Despite operating on very few lands here. I wish I had more lands so that I could play these Ominous Seas. Because, like, this is the sort of matchup that they're great in. Like, in these slow, dirtily, blue, grindy matchups, you want the things that give you the ability to eke out card advantage over time. Your Planeswalkers, your Monastery Mentors, the Emerys that my opponent is playing, you know, the Uros, that sort of stuff. This Brainstorm is probably huge for my opponent, though. They can put back whatever counterspells they've amassed. And turn them into real cards. My opponent finds Swords of Plowshares. They can Swords of Plowshares a Tarmogoyf, kill my Teferi, and then a bunch of their spells become live again. Plus, I would just take 6. I don't know. This might be the sort of match where, like, Tarmogoyf number 3 just does my opponent in. Alright, my opponent gets to see the next Tarmogoyf coming. We'll see if my opponent just, like, suicide attacks 2 monks into Teferi. Oh, Jace is good. This is very good when I'm operating under constrained amounts of mana. I think I'm in great shape if I draw a land. Eh. I think that statement is still just true. Okay. I think these... Actually... It's probably a shardless agent situation. Yeah, this is a shardless agent situation. I'll put a Tarmogoyf 2 down, and then a Plains on top that I can go past. I didn't hit the land naturally like I wanted, but this gets me to a similar place overall. Alright, opponent did not have a Force of Will effect. Good news for me. I am just sitting on a lot of damage. Also, if my opponent has, like, Terminus that I haven't seen yet, and they get to set that up, it's pretty disgusting. I feel like the answer to that is no. It's like they're an Emery deck, and that's something that wants to sit for a long time in one place. But I could be wrong. Grim Verdict also would be pretty rough. I am presenting Theoretical Lethal. I'm definitely scared of the Jace, though. Like, if I go for lethal, and then my opponent just, like, chumps and Swords to Plowshares a Tarmogoyf, I'm all of a sudden in a... maybe not a relatively bad position, but I'll be leaning further and further into the situation where I'm bad against a sweeper. Is there an enchantment in the graveyard? Yes, there is a Sylvan library. Trying to figure out how we got to 7-8. Alright, a Surgical Extraction on Swords to Plowshares. Alright, so my opponent is trying to stop the things that will let lethal get through next turn, presumably. think I send 2 lethal Tarmogoyfs at my opponent, and then the Shardless Agent at Jace. And see how it goes from there. It's possible I'm supposed to play a pre-combat Ominous Sea so that if I brainstorm, I am fueling that, but I'd rather have greater flexibility with the brainstorm itself. Attack you, attack you, attack Jace. Alright, and my opponent has conceded, and we take down this one. Whew! No land. Womp womp. Lands. Deep. I think I'm pitching one of my tropical islands here. Okay. I think I'm just gonna play a fetch land and pass here. There's always Stifle to be thinking about at the back of your mind. But I don't have the ability to get all 3 basics right now. Even when I do get all 3 basics, there's Uro to think about, which is 4 colored pips. I'm not 100% sure that I should just fetch right away. Ooh, okay, so we lose game 1, and then we have exactly 2 Relics of Progenitus for the post-sideboard games? Oh, that's bad. That's real bad. Yeah. Well, yeah, I am just not prepared for this matchup. I'm going to lose this matchup, I think. I think at this point, screw the basic lands. I just need to make sure I can cast all of my spells very consistently. I'm going to hope that my opponent makes Tarmogoyf very large, and then I'm going to hope that I draw another Tarmogoyf, and then I'm going to hope that my opponent doesn't have Faithless Looting. And once all that stuff's done, I'm also going to hope that they don't have a lot of other things. Alright, Tarmogoyf is already a 4/5. Opponent has a bridge, which is bad, because I'm quite bad against that card right now. Yeah, even if these weren't relics and they were some other card, I'm just like not well suited to fighting this matchup. Like I'll probably board in clusters and relics, and guess I can think about EE for zombies. But I'm gonna be pretty light on stuff that really matters in this matchup, especially when I have the opening hands that look like Tarmogoyfs and Icefang Coatls and Ominous Seas and Shardless Agents, and just don't have early interaction. Like this is what the Dredge deck is designed to bully, so don't feel bad about it. Alright, what do you got? Days. Sure. Going off. breakthrough. Careful, steady. Oh. Oh. Okay. This, I get Cabal Therapy. I lose both Ice Fang Coatls. My opponent gets the flashback. Faithless Looting. Alright. Next game. Alright. For zombies? Question mark? I could think about Pithing Needle for Cephalid Coliseum, but I don't know. Alright, so what things are good from my main deck? Force of Wills, Force of Negation, Swords to Plowshares. About it. Yikes, okay. This seems slow and easily chump blockable. This requires setup. I might go get rid of all the Ancestrals. I think just Shardless Agenting into stuff that has relevant text is fine. And I just... So many of my cards are clunky. And it's hard to sculpt a game plan where I imagine myself easily beating Dredge. Like, turn 1 Relic with Counterspell backup. Sounds nice. Ice Fangs are slow. Ominous Seas is slow. Teferi is slow. Teferi doesn't do enough. There's my 61. Yeah. Absolutely. We have the Relic of Progenitus Tarmogoyf combo that we talked about in the deck tech. See how that fares. So my opponent has lines that can just power through a Relic. Like an LED plus a Faithless Looting, for example, can go faster than Relic and just try to dump a whole bunch of stuff into play this turn. I don't exactly know what my opponent was expecting to Nature's Claim, but this is totally reasonable. I think I can safely get a basic here. Size of the Tarmogoyf this game is going to be dictated by my own graveyard, not by my opponent's graveyard. At some point, I'm going to need to start just holding up the hard to activate Relic of Progenitus as an oh shit button. Don't think that time is now. So notably, if I had pitched the other Force of Will, I could now be hardcasting Force of Negation, but I wanted to keep the Force of Will because some things like Putrid Imp are very good at overpowering the Relic of Progenitus. Awkward. Actually, I guess not awkward, right? I can still attack in with the Tarmogoyf, kill the Stinkweed Imp, and then Relic of Progenitus it away. That's fine. Cast? Hold for Force of Will? Maybe I need to just cast this. Yeah. Tarmogoyf up to a 3/4. I'll have another Tarmogoyf next turn. I still have the graveyard, maybe not on lockdown, but at least a little bit managed. And next turn I will technically have Force of Will available, because I'll be able to crack this, draw a card, and then pitch Uro. Alright. Bit of an odd game. I think I'm good with it. Yeah. Some interesting things can happen here. So for example, if my opponent has Bridge from Below in hand, things could get saucy. Alright. Do I let them dredge? I can just blow the graveyards now, play a insignificantly sized Tarmogoyf, and have Force of Will backup for the next thing that could let them go off. Or I could just try to play more conservatively. Opponent has played this game really well. The Cephalid Coliseum that's there makes me too nervous. I'm gonna crack this. Faithless Looting is now kind of the big card that I'm scared of. Because I can't just, like, counter that and stop everything. Now my opponent will crack their LED. I've ended up with a pretty good sized Charmagoyf. I ended up with a 4-5, so it puts my opponent on a 2-turn clock and there's only 5 cards in library. This game has been awesome. Now my opponent will get a Dredge 4 plus an Icarid next turn, so things can happen. Yeah, I don't mind having access to a Sylvan library. Mind that at all. That gives me some... I don't want to call it reach, but that gives me a lot more agency for how I push through these last 4 points of damage the next turn. Alright, how good are the top couple of cards of your deck? Actually, does my opponent even bring back the Icarid here? So, Golgari Thug is Dredge 4. So if they bring back the Icarid and then they dredge this, that's 6 cards in graveyard. That's not enough to activate Cephalid Coliseum. Yeah, I wonder if it was a mistake to activate... Or sorry, to bring back the Icarid there. Yeah, so if they leave the Icarid in graveyard, they can activate Cephalid Coliseum. There will be a Golgari Thug in the graveyard. And then they can try to go off a little bit harder. I still think life's bad. Oh wait, hold on, there's a gemstone mine. No, this line leaves you dead. No! No, you're dead! No! You're at exactly 2, so Shardless Agent kills you. Ooh, but I do need to put. Oh, no! Hold on, hold on. You shrunk the Tarmogoyf down to a 1, so that wasn't lethal anymore. Okay, it would have been lethal. Man, so on my opponent's side of the battlefield, they had a bunch of decisions for their turn. So they could have made blue with Gemstone Mine. That would have been their 7th card in graveyard. They could have activated Cephalid Coliseum. I think my opponent played that really well, but I think there were probably better lines available to them. Um, hmm. All right, neat. Do I want to change anything on the draw? I have 3 answers to a Hogak. I have 3 Swords of Plowshares. I can board the Teferi back in, and then that becomes a 4th answer. Okay. I think on the draw, I need another answer to Cephalid Coliseum. All right, what's worse, Ominous Seas or Icefang Coatl? Probably Icefang Coatl. But it's kind of close. Hmm. All right, 2 of Relic in the opening hand again. This is close-ish. This has a very good assortment of interaction, but this is just the wrong land. Like, if this was Tundra, I might be pretty tempted to keep this one. But I think this one is going to have to go back. Alright, is this a 5-card hand that wins the game? My Force of Will does not do anything. I do not have a blue card to pair it with. This is not better than a hand with a Relic. But it's close. So this is probably the 5-card hand. I think I still begrudgingly keep the Force and hope to draw something, but I don't like it. I think at some point I just have to accept a hand. I force the first thing my opponent has, and I hope that's good enough. Hope to draw lands or Relic. But just very not happy with how this one is going to end after such a great game, too. Like, my opponent needs to just have no way of getting cards into the graveyard. Sad trombone noises. Womp, womp. I guess maybe I could draw, like, Relic for my draw step. Alright. Do your worst. Oh, that's pretty bad. That's double dredge, grave troll. There's a ball therapy and a bridge in the graveyard. There's an Icarid for later. A couple of dredgers. There's an ox in there for if my opponent finds an LED. Uh, I would have named Relic there as well. Not top deck Relic like a boss. I can't imagine myself winning from here. I'll take one more draw step though. Like if the top card is Relic and I nuke my graveyard and my opponent like somehow doesn't do anything cool in this turn cycle, maybe we can talk, but my opponent even just making a handful of zombie tokens this turn is probably pretty damning. I just have no gas. Okay, I mean, that's not a good dredge, so that's good news for me. My opponent has a land, though, and they flash back to Faithless Looting. I'm in trouble. Waiting for them to pay costs. Oh no. The breakthrough X equals 1? Oh no, escaping the Ox. Well... Alright, multiple Narcomoebas. A new bridge. Another new bridge, a Hogak. Yeah, okay. Alright. I think I can pretty safely throw in the towel here. GG's opponent, like, well played. So I got very excited when I looked at this opening hand because we had Ominous Seas plus Sylvan Library, which is exactly what I want to do because we haven't done it this league yet. But we don't have green mana. My opponent has mulliganed. I'm on the draw. Any cantrip makes this hand good. Any green land or fetch land makes this hand good. But if I don't hit one of those, things are pretty bad. So 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 hits in 2 draws? That's not bad. I'm gonna keep it. This is probably realistically a mulligan, but I want to do the thing. We're probably playing against Red Prison or Burn. Could be like a blue-red Delver deck too, I suppose. Burn. I think that's just going to be worth doing. Eh. So the good news is that I have a certain source of life gain in my deck that will be very strong if we can make it to the end game. I'm gonna need to force like a sulfuric vortex here if my opponent has one of those. All right, so many good draws here. Tarmogoyf is out of bolt range. Beautiful. I'm gonna play the Tarmogoyf because it stops me from taking haste damage. And then next turn I'll play Sylvan Library, and Sylvan Library plus Ominous Seas will probably lock up this game pretty quick. Now we're cooking with gas. Price of Progress is a little bit less common than it used to be in the burn decks. Now there's more things like Sulfuric Vortex and Rolling Vortex to offset the life gain from the Uro sort of decks, so I do think I will go ahead and play out this land. I just have so much to do with my mana in this deck. What you got? Sideboard options are kind of medium minus here. I probably get Flusterstorms, and I might just play Canonists too, question mark. But we're really hoping that Uro just like overwhelms my opponent more so than anything else here. All right, my opponent played a mountain. Now what? I would like to go to my turn and work on making a Kraken. Oh, they're gonna Fire Blast the Tarmogoyf. But you put a land into the graveyard, which turns Tarmogoyf into a 4/5. Yeah, okay. Like, Ominous Seas is going to catch up to you very quickly. Nice. Blue, blue, green. I need one of these. I take both. Sure. I don't think I go so far as paying life against the burn deck. I probably could at this point, but now we're seeing the Ominous Seas Uro interaction that I wanted to see earlier. We're at 6 of 8 counters here. So I will be able to make a Kraken on my turn. All right, yeah, my opponent is fine with that. Okay, what is bad against this deck? The fairy is not particularly great. Like, bouncing the haste creatures isn't good. Bouncing Eidolon is acceptable, but eh. The libraries are good specifically because of Ominous Seas. That interaction is really strong. What about EE? EE for 1 kills critters. It's an artifact to make Tarmogoyf bigger. Let's board in Wilts and Flusterstorms. Then I have answers to sulfuric and roiling vortex. I can keep Teferi to bounce the enchantments. That's something too. All right, maybe I don't board that out. All right, what's the plan? I don't think Ancestral Vision is particularly good. Maybe junk all of those. And then I need to make one more cut. I can probably go down one Ominous Seas. Like, I want that effect in the deck because, like, Ominous Seas plus Sylvan Library is one of my fastest ways to just clock my opponent. But I don't necessarily want to draw more than one Ominous Seas in a game. Nope. This is not functional mana here. Yeah, this is fine. See the Brainstorm or the Ponder being the worst card here. The Arrow and the Swords to Plowshares are mandatory keeps. One of the two cantrips is a mandatory keep, and Shardless Agent has a lot going for it. If I keep Brainstorm, I can potentially set up, like, Shardless into some other spell in one turn cycle, which can be pretty strong. But if my opponent doesn't play a creature on turn 1, I really want to Ponder on turn 1 and look for a land. So I think I'm going to pitch the Brainstorm. Most of the things that I hit off a Shardless Agent will be fine. Yeah, my opponent did play a creature on turn 1, which means that I'm not pondering, and I'm going to Swords to Plowshares instead. I would say that I am currently favored. Things can happen. But I feel good. Okay, my opponent has one land, which is both good and bad. The good is that they can't deploy cards quickly. The bad is that they have a handful of gas. Ice Fang Coatl does not have Death Touch currently. I guess I technically could have looked for a Force of Will there, because I'm going to cast this anyway. Drunk. Alright, lots of options now. I think my Shardless Agent hits are just so good here that I just go ahead and do this. Nice. Now I have Sylvan Library, Ominous Seas for next turn. And I think no attack. Sure. That's fine. I mostly want to avoid something like a Roiling Vortex or Sulfuric Vortex from hitting play. Oh wow, we got a removal spell out of that. That's fine. I'm very likely to like hit a land drop and start working towards Uro here. Or just work towards Ominous Seas, depending on which one seems like a better idea. We're putting this back. And I think I put Swords to Plowshares back. Draw it with Uro. This life gain just seems so nice right now. My opponent has used multiple removal spells on my creatures so that their Monastery Swiftspear can get through. I have 3 cards in graveyard. The Swords to Plowshares will be card number 4 for Uro, and then I think I have a fetch land on top that'll be card 5. And that should pretty much lock things up, I think. This is 4 health. Do I care? I don't think I care. Yeah. Like, I have 3 damage a turn, or 3 life a turn off of an Uro starting next turn. One, two, three, four. Okay, so I can cast Ponder. Ponder, green, green, blue, blue. Yeah, that's fine. But that might mean that I end up pitching this Ominous Seas, which I really want. But I think that's okay. Fifth card. Honestly, like, I'm good with this stuff. Yeah, I'm good with this stuff. Blue, green, green, blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I redraw that Ice Fang Coatl here, which means that I can pitch that to the Force of Will rather than the Ominous Seas. All right, well, that one can't be countered. I think I'm fine with taking the Tarmogoyf that's on top of my library here. I mean, surely I don't need to Sylvan Library Ominous Seas twice, right? Like, that's really cute, though. It cost me 4 mana to do that, leaving with 2 other mana. Alright, I don't think it's the right play. But it's really funny. Oh, I don't have another island. Alright, I will grab a forest then. Kraken! Kraken! The second Sylvan library here is choice. Yes? Hello? You like to cast the cards that reduce my life total? You would not. I think I am just going to brainstorm end of turn purely for Ominous Seas counters. I don't really need to play Ice Fang Coatl. I'm just going to hold that as a pitch card. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Put that on the top of library. And I'm going to put that on top of library. Yes, I will use this ability. Then I'll put that on top. I'll put this on top first. Put this on top of library, and then put this on top of library. So I officially have a Kraken on standby, which means my opponent is dead next turn to my attacks, plus I'm gaining 3 more life, plus I have a counterspell backup. Things were good there. We did the stuff. All right, going into my final round here, I have a bit of an interesting hand in that I have really good cards, but I don't have enough mana. I think I'm going to keep and start on like basic Island Ponder and just shuffle if I don't find a land. I think 2 cantrips is enough to glue this hand together. But this is really a deck that I prefer to start with 2 or 3 lands in my opening hand. Like, unquestionably. Yeah. Yeah. That's fine. It's not ideal. Because, like, I kind of expect my opponent to be on a wasteland deck of some nature. But, like, having a Sylvan library plus a brainstorm is a really strong starting recipe. Or, like, continuing to hit my land drops. Yeah, that's fine. So, could be playing against Maverick, the most likely thing based on the cards I've seen so far. But my opponent plays a lot of Loam, so I'm also going to be keeping that in mind. I think that's too annoying here. I need to continue to cantrip to hit lands. All right. I think I'm paying the blood price here and then brainstorming to make a land drop. Ugh. Oh, those aren't fetch lands. So I'm thinking about Shardless Agent. I think I just end up playing Uro instead next turn. Probably means I do something like that. Make this land drop. And play out this with the big fat butt. That's a problem if my opponent finds a wasteland. It's still a problem with them having a fetch land. Like, that's just a source of card advantage for them. But Tarmogoyf at least currently is stalling the board. Ooze is very good against what I've got going on. I put this back. What on earth is happening? I'm really glad I'm recording this. Uh, uh, okay. Uh, yeah. So I think this is the original opening hand that I was given again. So uh uh well, now I know what my opponent is playing and I know what my opening draws look like. This is uninteresting to me to like start playing the same game again, even though like no, didn't I have a ponder last time? I think I had a ponder last time. I'm mulligan this hand. I'm gonna mulligan this hand. Uh, uh, yikes. I'm actually going to keep the Ominous Seas because it's something that cycles with just colorless. What on earth? So now my
This is kind of weird. All right, I'm gonna pause recording for a minute. Okay, so I chatted with my opponent a bit. We decided that my opponent was just going to concede to me, and we were both going to file for compensation. Um, I I have never seen a bug that bad on Magic Online in all of the years that I've been playing. Like Magic Online usually buggy, but that was just insane. Uh, so on paper here, the finish is a 3-2. Um, that's a little bit of a disappointing way to end a video. It is what it is. All right, so first thing we do here, okay, is we take this plains and we yeet it, and then we search up snow dash covered plains, okay? And we put one of those into the deck list and pretend that nothing happened. All right, now let's do the debrief properly. Um, I kind of felt like Ancestral Vision was completely unneeded in this deck list. So, the Shardless Agent and Uro together as an endgame engine meant that I had a good amount of card advantage, and I don't think I ever suspended an Ancestral Vision, and I think I frequently boarded them out. I loved the beating power of Tarmogoyf. In our slower matchups, I liked the Ominous Seas interaction with Sylvan Library and Uro. That was a really powerful source of endgame inevitability. But I think if I was going to try this list again, I would play the fourth source to Plowshares. I would play, I think, a 22nd land, because I just really wanted lands every game. And then I'm not sure what this last Ancestral Visions would become. Maybe it just becomes the fourth Shardless Agent? Or maybe it becomes another piece of counter magic or interaction of some kind. But I don't think the deck needed the Ancestrals. As far as the sideboard goes, overall, I kind of liked the options that were available to me. So against combo decks, we have a handful of things that interact from different axes, and I like that. Against the fair decks, we've got a handful of stuff of this nature, and Relic kind of doubles duty against that. That sort of stuff as well. I do sort of feel like the sideboard wants another removal card or two, though. I feel like this is a deck that might want, like, say, a Path to Exile in the sideboard. Our Icefang Coatls kind of count as removal and kind of don't count as removal. Overall, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be playing Relic of Progenitus alongside Tarmogoyf and Uro, or if these should be like Surgicals or something of that nature. That's something else that I'd be thinking about if I was going to play this deck again. Um, but overall, positive feelings about this deck list. I'm glad we got to like do the Kraken thing at least once in this shortened league. All right. Normally this is the part of the video where like I shill and ask for likes and whatnot, but we kind of ended on a low note this time. So instead, if you have any ideas about what you would do differently with this deck, throw those sorts of things in the comments, and I'll see you again soon. What a ridiculous tail end of a league.